If war ever comes on the home front of Appalachia, the need for a guerrilla sniper force would be unmatched. Some things that go into having a guerrilla sniper force include precision, using holdovers to the predominant effect. Precision shooting is all about accuracy and understanding how to read your reticle and make proper adjustments. It is key to hitting your target at long distances, and in today's video we'll dive into holdovers and what makes a BDC reticle the superb option for Appalachia. What's up, guys? Operation Pour back here with another video. This is part 2 of my magnum opus. I've been trying to get a lot, upgrade production value, but I got to be in the shed today. I don't have any heat in here, but it's a little bit better. We just got hit with a big winter storm, and it is like 26 degrees. And I'd be trying to wear the gear that I would if I was conducting such operations, but sometimes that's just not on the table. And with the time frame and everything, we're just going to push this out. So in the first video, after rewatching it, I just want to apologize. I did kind of ramble, and I really did go over the same stuff a lot. But please keep in mind, this is about 3 years of research that went into this, and I'm really trying to dumb it down. Like in the first video, I compressed. I could have went 3-4 hours going into depth about what I was saying and kind of defending my arguments, why I chose this and that. And nobody wants to watch that. That's too long. So I kind of hopped around. But if you watched it, thank you. Welcome to part 2. I'm going to try to be more straight to the point with this. So essentially we have a AR-10. That's pretty much the platform that would be the superb option for sniping operations in Appalachia, however you want to say it. Essentially, we concluded and deducted from part 1 that we're not really going to be shooting above 250 meters, and at no point in time are we ever going to be shooting above 400 yards. That is just not a thing. And the 400 yards is like if you got on a highway and started shooting down the highway. Now, legal disclaimer, this is all like fantasy stuff. Don't come at me saying I told you to do this or that, or I trained you or whatever, because that is simply not true. This and my whole channel is about if foreign invasion happens or there's a nuclear war breaks out and it's like Mad Max type stuff. So before we even get into more of this, disclaimer, none of this is like, this is really just a hobby of mine. Now, could this be used to a devastating effect of lethality? Yes, it could, but I'm not responsible for anything that you do legally. So just so we know. So I'm going to talk about why I chose a BDC reticle on my build. Now, you have definitely seen movies and stuff where there's a bunch of mil dots, hash marks, lines, whether they're using the mil system or the MOA system, which is the two primary systems that precision shooters use. Mil seems to be more metric. MOA is just kind of out there. I'm not going to go into the background or anything like that, but there's MOA and there's mils. That's pretty much all you need to know. I got a little cheat sheet here, right? Some notes I took and everything, and we're just going to get into this. That light is killing me with the ears. That is crazy, man. But just keep me on track. I do try to take notes. I get off track sometimes. I think I got ADD, to be honest with you. So first, let's talk about holdovers. Holdover refers to the technique of aiming above or below your target to compensate for a bullet drop at longer distances. Instead of making adjustments to your scope, you simply adjust your point of aim. So if you've seen snipers in movies, precision shooters and stuff, when they get out to distance, when they get out to distance, you'll see them, they're all in a good supported position, and you see them, they might, if it's a sniper movie, whatever, they'll say 2 clicks, three mils, whatever, and then they'll get up here and they'll start cranking their turrets and changing all kinds of stuff, and that they're making adjustments for windage, but distance as well. And that is to get the reticle on target. They're not using the BDC system. They're using the math and the calculations that they have trained over and over and over again to use to make those adjustments, and wherever that reticle is should be where they need to hit. Now, probably going to get some pushback for this, but I got to say it. In Appalachia, you can get away with just never doing that if you have a BDC reticle. There, you will never have to adjust your scope once it's zeroed, unless it breaks, or you smack it really hard and it's just off zero. So once you find your distance that you need to zero for your particular cartridge, a good one for 308 is 50 yards, but I recently discovered that 100 yards with my particular scope, which is a SIG Buckmaster 3-12, but with my particular scope, 100 yard zero lines dead on with the BDC. So that is going to be something I said in the first video that I'm going to change to 100 yard zero, just because it'll allow me to use that BDC reticle. Now, big reason I'm not telling you exactly what to buy, and I'm just telling you what you need to look for, is there is so much, or so many variables. Your barrel length, if you decide to use something other than 308 or 7.62 by 51 millimeter, all this advice or any advice you get from any video is probably not going to work, because it's not only a caliber thing, the way the bullet arcs, it's also the load, the grain weight, what kind of bullet it is. Are you using FMJ, armor piercing, are you using hollow points, stuff like that. So yeah, now that we kind of got that out of, I gotta cover my ear. That's Kelly. I was staring at him. There we go. So now that we kind of got that out of our way, only using the BDC is really good news. So if you get decent at using range estimation, and I would really push you to do more research instead of relying on a rangefinder like this, which is nice. I'm just going to click and I'll tell you the exact range. You might want to do it a couple times just to make sure that it's pretty, pretty consistent, pretty good on there. If anybody's got any other IR devices, even a $30 Temu camera, and especially if it's in the evening or at nighttime, when you click that, game over, you're dead. It's that simple. They see where you're at and they're going to light your tail up. So especially if they're using night vision, you're doing any operations and you start shining lasers, it's not good. So whether you're doing nighttime or not, especially where there's a lot of brush around this area in Appalachian regions, it would probably be good to learn how to use your reticle, which it's all your specific reticle, to calculate distances, or getting really good, finding another way to calculate distances to a target versus relying on a rangefinder. Now, if your enemy is not necessarily a near-peer threat and they don't have night vision, then you don't really, or maybe you can ambush them. They don't foresee themselves getting an engagement anytime soon, so their guard is down. Then you definitely could probably use a rangefinder and nobody would know. But if they're actively at a fob or something like that, I repeat, I would not be using rangefinders. That is a death wish. So, why the BDC reticle? Like I said, once you find kind of amalgamation of the BDC reticle to your specific caliber that you're using, we're using 308, and you find where you need to zero it at. So in my case, it would be 100 yards to line up with that reticle. Once you get good at judging distance, all you have to do is just pull it up to whatever distance it is and then fire. And in theory, if you have a decent scope and a decent rifle, you will smack it every time. As long as you get enough practice with that reticle, you should be fine. Then you want to make sure that your scope is leveled. You want to buy a scope level, more than likely. You want to go out to the range and make sure that it's not canted. I've had reticles and scopes sometimes. I'll mount them, put Loctite on them and everything. I swear they're straight up and down. And at 300 yards, you know, they're shooting 6 inches to the left because they're just a couple degrees off. So, excluding my crude drawing here, but this kind of 308, 100 yard zero. It's kind of backwards, but this is a BDC reticle. This is exactly what my reticle I'm currently using on my Appalachian Sniper System setup is using. I've had a lot of caffeine, so yeah, we getting it today. I just got done with the workout. So we'll say 0'd at 100. This first hash mark is 200 yards. Once you judge that your distance is roughly 200 yards, instead of aiming with the middle of the reticle right here, you're going to aim with this hash mark. You're going to put the target right in the center of this line, pull the trigger. If it's right at 200 yards, you're going to smack it. Whether it's a silhouette target or 8-inch plate, in theory, you'll smack it. Same thing with 300 yards, 400, 500 yards. Mine goes to 500 yards. However, you do not need anything over 400 yards in the Appalachian region. That is unheard of. It's just, you're never going to see that for a guerrilla engagement or even a professional military. So if you're in the Army watching this and you are a sniper, I mean, you already know this. I know that you already know this. But in the Appalachian region, you will never see anything past 400 yards. That's non-existent. So I think that's pretty straightforward. That, you know, I try to just draw it out to, you know, show you, 100 yards, 200. And let's say you had 150, you can, instead of dialing a couple clicks, you find the 100 and the 200 and you just hold roughly in the middle of that. And, that's at a distance. You really don't have to worry about that. You just pull the trigger in between the hash marks and you should hit what you're aiming at. Same thing with 2 to 3. 3 to 4, you definitely want some practice. If you do have areas that are 300 to 400 yards that you'll be shooting at, and you have access to ranges or fields or something that allow you to shoot at those ranges, then I would definitely just see what your reticle does. Now, like I said, your bullet weight or your grain weight, that matters. I use a very heavy grain weight for 308. I use 178 grain match grade ammunition by AAC. It's Bowtail hollow point. The reason is, even though I lose a little bit of velocity, it kind of stabilizes better, especially out of a shorter barrel. I found personally. Now, I know people will disagree with that, but personally, with my particular rifle, it feeds better with 178 grain. And I've noticed more consistent accuracy with 178 grain. And like I said, people will disagree with certain things on that. But another reason, a more tactical reason, if you want to call it that, or field reason, is vehicles. So, good thing about having a semi-automatic, basically a AR-10 platform, is shoot the engine block out of a car, an enemy car. Just shoot the engine block, and within, I wouldn't say every time guaranteed, the cars are going to shut off in one shot, but if you're 200 meters, 250, 300 meters out, and you see an enemy vehicle, especially if it's not up armored, it's light armored, just start shooting the heck out of the front of the engine block. And then if you get, let's say it's coming straight at you, and you pop off and you get 3 hits out of 5, 3 out of 5 hits, which is pretty good on a moving target, but it's coming right at you, that's, whatever. Even if you're not trying to kill the driver in the TC of that vehicle, it's going to stop, more than likely, especially with 308. And you get a heavy grain like 178, even though you're losing a bit more velocity, it's a little bit heavier of a bullet. There's kind of more of a blunting effect. Now, I know we're getting very nitpicky, like, is there really a difference between 150, 162, 168 grain, or 178 grain? Yes. Is it that big of a difference? Probably not. But there's still a difference. So for vehicles and stuff, I would probably use a heavier bullet. That's just how it is. And like I said, you don't really have to worry about drop as much because we're not going to be engaging in distances like that over 400 yards. And I keep kicking it up every video, seems like, but the 400 yards, heck, 300 yards, I don't know one place around here I can shoot above 300 yards. I don't know not a single place in like a 10 county wide area that I can go and shoot. I heard of one spot, one very particular spot, not the that's not a highway, and that's just, I don't know. You know, it's a very niche thing around here. That it's hills and hills and hills and brush and hills and trees and hills and brush. And you know, even in cities, like hills and brush, and there's trees in most cities around here in towns, and it's just, you know, we very rural area. So looking at pictures and where I've been around a lot through the military and stuff, it's all of Appalachia is like that. So yeah. So we're going to kind of get back up on script. I kind of rambled a little bit. But anyways, as your bullet travels downrange, gravity pulls it downward. This means at longer ranges, your bullet will drop below where you're aiming. So if you didn't know, here's the muzzle. Your bullet actually rises. It hits its peak, and then it goes back down. Now, usually it's not a perfect, so stay with me. Muzzle, up, and then the farther it goes, the more energy it loses, and then it'll kind of jet out. So up, up, or up. I hope that made sense. All right. So a holdover allows you to aim slightly above your target, offset that drop. For example, at 200 yards, you might need to aim a couple of inches above your target to compensate. The further the target, the more you'll need to adjust. Holdovers are especially useful when you're shooting at varying distances and don't want to constantly adjust your scope. So like I said before, adjusting your scope. Now, with those sniper scopes and those long-range hunting scopes, they do kick up the prices a lot because they know people will pay more for that capability. But see, that is something we don't need around here, that capability. I got a SIGBUCK Master Scope from PSA, minus the mount, for $90, and I am confident in that scope to make these hits because of all the thousands of good reviews of people taking bucks at 400 to 500 yards with this thing. And like I said, the reticle only goes to 500 yards. However, we don't need to pay for these big Christmas tree MOA scopes. We don't need to pay $1,000 for glass when we could get a $90 glass and it would do and be just as good for what we need it to do. So that's more of a budget thing. If you don't feel comfortable with that and you want to arc in or whatever, you know, arc in, a lot of people, that's the cheapest they'll go. But one of the world record shots was made with like 350 or 375. Might have been a $500 Arkin scope, but it was an Arkin scope, and they're more known for the budget brands. And that was a world record long range shot. So I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. You know, price doesn't really mean anything with modern manufacturing skills anymore. Now, obviously, I wouldn't order a $6 Temu scope, but once you get into roughly $100 and above, you can get good glass. I don't care who you are. Bushnell makes good glass. Sig makes pretty good glass. Even Monstrum, you know, Monstrum makes decent glass now. When they first came out, they were kind of trash, but now, I mean, I have a 1:6 LPVO, and I'll be drilling 8-inch plates at 200 meters like it's nothing, just over and over and over and over. In my ultra budget shooting sticks, I hit 16 out of 17 or 16 out of 18 shots, and I mean, I had a cadence of boom, back on target, boom. Wasn't much, you know, it wasn't much precision or nothing on it. You know, that was a $130 LPVO. Anyways, I would not cheap out on the mount though. I always use like $70, $80 mounts, and then I Loctite them and I torque the heck out of them. So usually it's not the cheap scope failing, it's the cheap mounts. So just keep that in mind. So let's dive into BDC reticles, which stands for Bullet Drop Compensator. These are special reticles designed with pre-calculated holdover points built directly into the crosshairs. BDC reticle typically has several dots or hash marks, like mine does, below the center crosshair, each one representing specific distances, usually in increments like 100, 200 yard intervals. As you engage targets at different ranges, you simply use the corresponding dot or hash mark to aim at the target. We went over this already. This allows you to quickly compensate for bullet drop without needing to adjust your scope's elevation turret. So section 3 right here, how to use holdovers and BDC reticles together. So I also want to hit on this. If you were ever in the military, specifically the Army, you zero at 25 meters with your M4A1 carbine or your M16 platform rifle. They do a 25 meter zero, which means you are dead on. Remember the arc? So arc 25, back down, hits it right at 300. If you're dead on at 25 meters with the 5.56 cartridge out of one of those platforms, you are dead on at 300 meters. So, between 25 and 300 meters, you have holdovers. And this is a little bit different than what we went over holdover-wise. You're just aiming up. If you have a target at 50 meters, between the 25 and 300 meters, that arc, remember that arc, you have to compensate for that. You have to hold it a little bit low to get a good hit on it. So you have your dot, instead of aiming right at the head, if you want a headshot, you'll aim kind of in the chest, upper neck area for a headshot. When you get to 100 meters, you want to aim, typically they have like, they'll pop up and they got a berm. You want to aim kind of at the waistline, give or take. And then once you get to 200, you want to aim right for the berm, 200 meters. And then 250, I think it starts to go back up. Now, it's been a long time since I did the M4A1 qualification and, shot those tables. However, that's kind of the gist. At like 250 to 275, it's kind of arcing back down. So that is the same hold as the 50 meter. And, at 300, that's the 25 meter. But you have to adjust up and down. You shouldn't really have to adjust left and right unless there's wind, but up and down to get consistent hits in the same area on the torso or the silhouette target. So how the holdovers and BDC reticles work together. The beauty of a BDC reticle is that it essentially gives you the holdover points for various distances all in one place. For example, if your target is 300 yards away, you might use the second dot down on your reticle. If it's 400 yards, use the third dot, blah, blah, blah. So, this calls for quicker target acquisition because you ain't got to do the math. You got to figure out the range and then make your shot. You don't have to adjust anything, and that allows you to get more budget optics, cheaper optics that will hold up to, you just screw the turret caps on and you never have to worry about it again once you zero. That is the greatest thing about not having to go to distance. You zero it, you can even put Loctite on them turret caps. You'll never have to take them off again if it stays zero. You never have to make adjustments. It is great. That kicks out like half of sniping right there for the guerrilla Appalachian Sniper. Learning all the math and the equations, you don't have to do any of that. None. Zip nada of that. You just got to learn your holdovers and get a lot of rounds down range at distances you could be seeing. So, some things that go into that. You got to know your bullet's trajectory, understand the ballistics of your ammunition. Like I said, grain weight, charge, all that. If you load your own, you already know what I'm talking about. Every round will have a different bullet drop at various distances, so ensure that the BDC reticle you're using is matched to your specific load. We went over that. Practice at different ranges. Went over that, sometimes the holdovers. Account for environmental factors like wind, temperature, and altitude can all affect your shot. Now, where we're at and with the grain weights that we're shooting using a 308, it's not that big of a deal. It is still there. It is still present, but it is not a super big deal compared to everything else. Wind could affect it. Temperature could affect it. But shooting 400 yards and in, that is a very, very minuscule. As long as you have a decent decent shooting rifle, that is a very minuscule thing. That takes out a lot of air factor of the rifle and a lot of calculation, and leaves it to the fundamentals of the operator, knowing your weapon, knowing your load. So, to wrap it up, holdovers and BDC reticles are both fantastic tools to have in your precision shooting toolkit. While a holdover lets you compensate for bullet drop by aiming above or below your target, a BDC reticle gives you built-in reference points to make this even easier. With a little practice, you'll be able to engage targets at long distances with confidence and accuracy. So, yep. So hopefully that made sense. There's going to be like 20 parts to this probably. I did a lot of research. I've been trying to compile everything and make them better every video. Trying to get to 1,000 now. We hit 500, baby. That was my main goal. So we get to 1,000, I can start doing community posts, and I just want to be on the up and up, guys. I want to be out there, and I don't really care about money. I'm just trying to get word out, and I just want people to be good, be safe. You know, I want patriots that love America to have a good head on their shoulders. I want them to be all right. So, au revoir. That's French for goodbye. I'll see you guys next time on the mountain. Peace.